welcome back to Food Prep Guide and welcome back to another Pantry Challenge video. Tonight's video is another excellent way to stretch meat. It is fried rice. Now you can use whatever meat you want in this. We are going to be using pork chops that we're going to be grinding. I'll talk about that in a minute. If you are accustomed to cooking fried rice, you know that once you start, it goes really fast and it's really easy to burn things. So I won't have a whole lot of time to turn to the camera and talk because I want you to be able to see the skillet, see it all cook up, and I also don't want to burn stuff. So let's talk a bit about a few things before we get started. We will be using pork chops for this video. This is an excellent way to stretch meat. We have 4 pork chops here, and instead of just making pork chops, I'm going to cut out the bone and grind it in my Vitamix blender to create like a ground pork, and that's what we're going to be using for our meat. I have 2 eggs already scrambled in a bowl over here. I have 1 onion already chopped up in a bowl. I have a mixed vegetable blend. So let's talk about this. These are dehydrated mixed vegetables. These are the bags that you can get in your frozen section that are just peas, corn, carrots, and green beans, I think. You can just take those frozen bags and lay them straight out on your dehydrator tray. No prep involved. This morning when I saw that this fried rice was on the menu, I knew I needed to prep some frozen vegetables, or dehydrated vegetables, excuse me. I used 1 cup of dried veggies. When I'm only rehydrating 1 to 2 cups of something, I like to put it in a quart jar. So I put 1 cup of dehydrated veggies this morning. I added half a teaspoon of salt, and if you notice the liquid's kind of brown. It might sound kind of weird, but I actually add a dash of Worcestershire sauce to my veggie blend because I noticed that with dehydrated mixed vegetables, something about it just doesn't taste the best. I think it's the peas. They just taste off a little bit when you dehydrate them. They're not ruined by any means, they just don't taste the greatest. But having mixed veggies dehydrated on hand is so convenient, so I had to find a way to make it taste good so that I could still use them and benefit from that convenience. And adding a little bit of salt and adding a little bit of Worcestershire sauce is the ticket. I like to do it in a quart jar because I can, as I'm walking throughout the kitchen, like I said, I prep this in the morning, and as I'm just walking throughout the kitchen throughout the day, I'll just take it, shake it, put it back on the counter. And that's just so that you see how this is separating. That's just so these veggies get a chance at the top to make sure they're still getting submerged into the water throughout the day. It's not a big deal. It's not, if you can't do that, it's not a big deal. But I will drain these before I'm ready to be using them. And our seasoning mix. I have been looking for a fried rice seasoning mix, like a homemade mix, for a long time. I've tested out several. I haven't been satisfied with any of the ones I've tried out. So I'm trying this one out. It is brown sugar, garlic powder, salt, pepper, onion powder, ginger powder. I think that might be it. But if it's good, and if this becomes my new go-to, I will type it up and add it to the recipe on the blog along with the fried rice recipe. One other note, we do not use soy sauce in our family for health reasons, so we're going to be using coconut aminos. And another note about the rice, for those of you who don't know, it is best to cook fried rice with leftover rice or cold rice. So I didn't have any leftover rice, so this morning I also prepped this bowl of rice. If I need just plain basic white rice for a dish, I always cook it the same way, and that's in the Instant Pot or pressure cooker. It is 2 cups of rice, 2 cups of water, a teaspoon of salt, and a tablespoon of butter. Put all of that in your Instant Pot, pressure cook it for 6 minutes, and allow for a natural release, and it turns out perfect every time. Before I put this, and also when I was done, I put it in the fridge. So it's been sitting in the fridge, getting cold since about 10 a.m. this morning. It's about 5:30 now. Before I'm ready to throw the rice into the skillet, I will take a spatula and I'll just break up the rice so it's not in clumps. Okay, I think that's all the notes I wanted to discuss. I'm going to be grinding and browning my pork with this little nifty tool. It's amazing. But then for the rest of the stir fry, I'm going to switch to a wide, flat wooden spoon thing. Okay, I think that's it. Let's get to it. I'm going to trim the pork chop off of the bones, toss it into my blender, and start browning it, and we'll be back in just a minute. Okay, y'all, I'm going to try something new with the way the camera is set up. It took me a long time to get fried rice right. Like, I always burnt it, or I always undercook it, or I always underseasoned it. And I just feel like fried rice is kind of like a finicky dish. It might not be for anybody else but me. Maybe I'm just learning challenge when it comes to fried rice, but I wanted y'all to be able to see the skillet really good for this recipe. So you won't see me a whole lot, but I will talk you through the ingredients. This is our pork chops that we just ground up into the blender, and I'm not seasoning these at all. I'm just gonna ground it up for now. Some of y'all may have seen in a recent video that I said I didn't have a big cast iron. A dear friend heard that and sent me one as a gift. You know who you are. Thank you so much. That was so sweet. And this cast iron, you may have thought you could only cook fried rice in a wok, but you can totally do it in a well-seasoned cast iron pan as well. Okay, so my original plan was to use a really large slotted spoon like this to scoop the pork out of the skillet so that I could keep the fat grease in the skillet to cook the rest of the stuff with, but I trimmed a lot of that fat off of the pork chops, so I'm now seeing that I'm really not going to have all that much grease, so when I'm done with this, I'll just set it aside instead of scooping it out, and then I will have to add some coconut oil. You can use any type of oil in the following steps, but for health reasons, we had to limit ourselves to coconut oil and olive oil. We do all of our cooking and baking with those two oils. We're almost close to this being done, so I'm going to go ahead and get my heat turned up all the way to medium-high. We need to cook fried rice on a pretty high setting, and that's why it goes really fast, and that's why it's also easy to burn. I'm going to go ahead and turn it up to 5. Cast iron takes a little bit longer to heat up than other skillets, but once it does, of course, it retains the heat beautifully. Okay, now I'm just going to scoop out this pork and set it aside for now. Next, I'm going to add some olive oil. I'm going to do 2 tablespoons. Turn down the heat just a bit to avoid some of that popping. Okay, we're going to get going on our garlic and onion. We'll do about a tablespoon of garlic and our onion. And we're just going to brown this onion until it's good and golden brown. I'm going to drain my dehydrated and rehydrated vegetables to get ready for the next step. Okay, next step is to fry our onion. If you would like to use onion, you certainly don't have to. I'm going to scoot all of this onion and garlic to the side over here. I'm going to put in about a tablespoon of butter. This is a little bit less than a tablespoon. Okay, and we're going to pour it in and just almost constantly move it around. It's okay if some gets over here into your onions and garlic. That's not a big deal. Okay. Now we're going to add in our dehydrated and rehydrated vegetables. Here's what they look like. They rehydrated beautifully. Everything's nice and squishy, just like it would be fresh. Pop that in there. Just going to cook this for 2 to 3 minutes. Stirring pretty constantly because we do have the heat up pretty high. I'm loving this cast iron skillet being so big. It's perfect for fried rice. Okay, I'm going to add that pork back in. Excuse me for the food flying everywhere, y'all. I'm kind of a messy cook. I'm kind of like, let's just get it done and clean up afterwards. So sorry about food flying everywhere. Okay, now for the seasonings. I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of this homemade mix. Really hoping it's good. I haven't tried it before. Let that cook for just a minute. While that's cooking for a minute, I'm going to take our cold rice that we took out of the fridge, and I'm just going to break it up and try to break up all those chunks. Okay, in goes the rice. Last but not least, we're going to add the sauce. Instead of soy sauce, we are using coconut aminos. It is an excellent, wonderful alternative to soy if you can't have soy, or just choose not to. I don't measure. I usually go by color. We want a nice golden brown to our rice. Yeah, I'm definitely going to need more. Let's go ahead and add more. I'm just trying to mix it and incorporate it until I don't see any more white rice. Okay, at this point, let's taste it, see what it needs. Okay, y'all, it needs a good bit more coconut aminos. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to pop that little lid off right there so I can get more out of the bottle. This is a really large batch. Coconut aminos doesn't have near the sodium content as soybean oil. So I know that may have looked like a lot if you're used to cooking with soybean oil, but with coconut aminos it's not. And it's much healthier, much lower sodium. Now we're starting to really get a nice brown to all of the rice. I'm going to taste it again in a minute, and we might be done. Like I said, y'all, I'm a messy cook. Look at all that, sorry. Okay. Let's taste it again. Okie doke. Taste test is good. So we are going to call this done. Look at that. Look at that. Yummy fried rice is an excellent way to stretch meat. See y'all later.